Good morning everyone. My name is Prashant. I'm studying in BTech 4th semester CSCC. My roll number is 22951A05F9. My topic is how technology converses with local languages. Introduction. The training taught a range of skills such as computer use, social network, managing physical mobility, and of course English. His perspective on English as a way to get to more things was also common among others in the training program, many of who came from low or middle income backgrounds and were aspiring towards independence and jobs to support themselves and their family. It is no coincidence that Rakesh used words like be here and get to more to describe his language preferences on his smartphone. English can often be associated with upper mobility or the ability to move up in the life, usually in terms of income or social status. If we ask why, we uncover how English is privileged in numerous aspects of many people's daily lives. Rooted in a history of colonialism that established English as the dominant language in many colonized areas, English has become a world language, or a language that is spoken internationally and by a significant number of people. It is the de facto language of science, information technology, business, economics, communications, and many other domains. If we look at online content, a source of daily entertainment, news, education, and more, will find more than half of it is in English, even though only 20% of the world's population speak English. It is no surprise that the learning and teaching English is now a thriving global business with an ever-growing customer base, manifesting in non-profits that teach English across the globe, private education systems that use English medium teaching as a selling point, and a slew of applications meant for English language learning. We can see a cycle starting to form. If English is so widely used in domains that offer avenues for opportunity, the language itself comes to be seen as a stepping stone toward mobility. English is widespread, but this does not mean that it is entirely monolithic. While scholars have brought attention to the problematic history of the rise of English, they have also noted the diverse ways the language is appropriated across the world. The notion of correct way to speak English is chipped away by how dissimilar communities might use it differently, creating new vocabulary, dialects, and pronunciations. Here, language education has increasingly taken a more critical approach by having students question how English came to be a world language and what goals they have for learning and using it. It seems something seemingly simple, such as language preferences on a smartphone, quickly becoming entangled in the complicated politics of language, which begs the larger question of where computing and design of computing technologies fit into this picture. Beyond the pervasiveness of English online content, the design of popular technologies such as smartphones and social media is often centered around English, among other Western-centric norms, and slowly adopted to other languages, if at all. But paralleling the tensions between English language dominance and local appropriation of English, the widespread use of English-centric technology leads to particular forms of use in the context of different local languages and cultures. Contextualizing the use of language and technology is particularly important to think about now. The decreasing cost of smartphones and data in many parts of the world means more and more people are getting online, and they are often not English speakers. In India, for example, approximately 90% of the people who newly got online in 2017 were non-English speakers. To understand the contextualized use of language and technology in parts of India specifically, we studied the language preference of new smartphones across 5 states. Our participants had acquired a smartphone at most 2 years prior. They were also most fluent in local Indic languages and either did not speak English or had basic English level. We also spoke with participants who are visually impaired and could speak to their experiences with using screen readers in local languages. Our work showed participants use a combination of English and local languages for different needs, such as accessing certain types of content, improving English skills, or talking to different people. However, common features and affordness of smartphones contributed to the difficulty of using local language in content creation and consumption, and the relative ease of English. In this work, we took an approach to understanding language use that is essential to uncovering the ways technologies interact with diverse cultures and contexts. Rather than looking at technology use in vacuum, we looked at how technology is in conversation with users' existing motivations, goals, and environment to uncover the ongoing and diverse relationships between people and technologies. We found that there was a resourceful use of English words and Latin script unique to our participant context. For instance, participants would often code switch between English and local language when typing a message or conversing as a way of conveying meaning effectively. This applied particularly to technical words such as information or brightness, which might sound archaic or unusual when translated to local languages. Notably, English use of smartphones was seen as a way of practicing and learning English, with some participants creating WhatsApp messaging groups. Members only wrote in English or used translation apps to expand one's vocabulary. Even among participants who are not trying to improve English skills, English in smartphone use was a way of accessing apps and online content and communicating with those who did not share the same local language. Different languages were also useful for talking to different audiences or accessing different content. For example, participants might reserve English for teacher or a colleague while they are comfortable messaging in local languages with their friends. It will also depend on the user's preferences. And participants' uncle would type chat messages in Hindi script. The participant would respond in transliterated Hindi, with both users understanding the conversation. Another participant, who was a teacher, mentioned how he mostly consumes English content but then prefers consuming content like news, jokes, and Wikipedia entries in Hindi in particular. He preferred looking for teaching material in Hindi as he can read it much faster compared to English. This resourceful use of English was nevertheless backgrounded by certain factors that sometimes made English or Latin script a necessity, even if many participants used it by choice. We found it was relatively more difficult to type in local language scripts. Participants reported numerous usability issues with local language keyboards that made it much easier to use just a keyboard with Latin script. These particularities of a language used on smartphone are backed up by certain motivation and goals. Our participants who came from a range of socio-economic backgrounds saw English as a key resource for upward mobility. Some participants felt English could open up opportunities and allow them to communicate more with diverse people. This perspective was less common among participants who were older or were from rural areas where local languages were spoken almost exclusively, but even these participants saw English as an opportunity to access more online content. Being able to use English also opened doors for participants in terms of education. Participants who are students felt while there was certainly some local language content available online, there was much wider range of English content that would support them in their work and project. Finally, participants were concerned about making their English use apparent and legitimate. They noted being able to slowly type out English or translate words meant it was possible to communicate English online even if one felt they were not fluent while speaking it in real time. If we return to the discussion of pervasiveness of English, we find that there are many pieces of this puzzle. There are historical trends around language that have made the world the way it is now, with critical mass of content already existing in English and English becoming the default language in many domains. There is also a desire to use both English and local languages as per the particular needs of individuals and communities, as well as the characteristics of a language itself and its script that factor in. And then there is the design of technology that plays a role in how individual people make choices around languages use. We also see these pieces would change as we change context. Most obviously, people who primarily speak, write, and consume content in English may not have the same connection with language use. Further, if you think about the countries where the history of language and cultural influences differ, we might find different behavior, such as Afrikaans in South Africa and Mandarin Chinese in China, that should inform technology design. Understanding the appropriation of technology, however, is only the first step in how designers and developers of computing technologies might design for more global base. Design might actually embody the needs, preferences, and aspirations of users who have been otherwise marginalized, whether it is in relation to language or other factors. Currently, attempts to adapt tools to the other languages have started with a English-centric design, referred to as localization, are only done over time and are not always thorough. As one of the participants pointed, even if he wanted to use Facebook in his local language, he found enter pages were sometimes not translated, even particularly important pages such as privacy settings. However, there have been a slow shift in how language is thought about into design of application, and it may contribute to supporting diverse language preferences among the users. As online content becomes more multilingual, such as Wikipedia articles or the range of languages that might come up on Facebook feed, technologies are of technologies are being designed to support the navigation of this content. For example, Facebook allows users to select not just in which language they would like their user to interface in, but also language they would like to automatically translate and which language they understand in general. In addition to localization of an interface, which is certainly necessary for people who speak one language, there are also attempts to design for many users multiple preferences. The question then becomes how can any technology break down assumption that English is the most understanding among diverse users? Among diverse users is possible. The notion of design embodying diverse languages has implications beyond end user technology like smartphone and smartphone apps. Because so much online content is in a small number of dominant languages, a large range of languages have been labeled as low resource, making it infeasible to build technology with them. The computing community is also English centric in many ways, with many programming languages being written in English or rarely adapted to other languages. Educational resources for learning programming and many professional and academic communities in computing use English as the norm, particularly in communications such as articles and publications. Here, technology might actually play a role in supporting greater participation as we advance in translation technologies, particularly those that are mobile and facilitate communication across languages in real time. It may be easier to support multicultural and global participation in computing and computing communities. Most importantly, we should nevertheless be cautious of the notion that improved translation technologies will perfectly solve inclusion and the issue of communicating across language barriers. Translation is a precarious process involving not just translation of words but also translation of meaning. Simply translating words and communication may not capture the contextualized meaning and intent of words. For example, different language editions of Wikipedia, you will find the content and ideas expressed are situated in the respective geographic and cultural context of language. While translation is important, we also need to think about how to create policies and establish community norms that support not just the participation of speakers of multiple languages, but also understanding and collaboration across linguistic diversity, especially if we want a world where its many languages are not barriers but rather resources for deeper communication and connection. Thank you.